This is like my ideal fried rice. Hello, welcome to Moonbelly Makes. My name is Katrina and welcome to my kitchen. Today I want to share with you my favorite way that I like to make fried rice at home, specifically how I make bacon and egg fried rice. This very delicious but inauthentic fried rice takes inspiration from Chinese ingredients and techniques, and also the Western breakfast staple of bacon and eggs. I add in a ton of veggies as well, so this fried rice is not a side dish, this is a main course. The inspiration for this dish came from a modern diner in Nashville, of all places. I didn't eat meat at the time, and my husband Josh ordered the bacon and egg fried rice that they had on the menu, and I really regretted being a vegetarian when this beautiful steaming bowl came to the table, and I've had it on my mind ever since. Years later, I eat meat again, and in an early pandemic moment where we had very little in the fridge except a few pieces of bacon, a couple eggs, and some random veggies, I decided to give this a try. Over the past little while, I've refined it, figured out exactly what I want in the sauce. I usually make this for dinner, but you can eat anything, any time of day, but because of the bacon and eggs, it can be a fun brunch choice, perhaps. Just a thought. Anyways, I love making this fried rice. It's so satisfying and delicious, and here's how I do it.
I absolutely love fried rice, but when I first started trying to make it at home, it often turned out bland or mushy. There are 3 technical things that I've learned over the years that make all the difference. First, don't overcook the rice. Second, batch cook the veggies so they fry instead of steam, and then use the exact right amount of sauce. To make this fried rice, I use rice. The best type of rice to use for a fried rice is leftover, about 3 cups for this recipe, because it has typically dried out in the fridge. If you don't have leftover rice, never fear. I will show you how I make a reliably drier rice that works right away using this 1 cup dried jasmine rice. I'll also use 6 strips of thick cut bacon, 1 small yellow onion, 3 medium carrots, 1 medium red pepper, a ½ pound green beans, a 1/4 small green cabbage, 2 large eggs, and about 3 tablespoons of neutral heat-safe oil such as canola, grapeseed, or avocado. For the sauce, I use 3 tablespoons of Shaoxing wine, which is a Chinese rice cooking wine. Dry sherry works well as a substitute, but you can pretty easily find this online, or if you have a local Asian market, they'll have it there too. 3 tablespoons of regular or vegetarian oyster sauce, 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of light brown sugar, and 3 cloves of garlic. For finishing, I've got a ½ bunch of cilantro, and basil is also really good if you have that. Obviously, I have cilantro, 1 tablespoon of toasted sesame oil, and chili oil, which is totally optional. I recommend a chili oil that has stuff in it, like this. In terms of equipment, I've got 1 each large and small heat-safe bowls, a pair of clean scissors, and a wok. Since I don't have leftover rice, I've got a large colander with tiny holes. A fine mesh sieve would work well too. A small pot to cook the rice, and a sheet tray or large plate to cool the rice once it's done. I rinse the rice 3 or 4 times until the water runs mostly clear and transfer it to the small pot, adding enough water to cover by a few inches, like cooking pasta. I give it a stir, cover, and bring to a boil, and then lower the heat so that the rice is gently simmering. Stirring occasionally, cook until the rice is almost cooked through, but still has a little bit of raw crunch in the very center, about 3 to 5 more minutes. Do not cook completely, or you will have that mushy mess I was talking about when you go to fry the rice. Drain the rice in the fine mesh sieve, or in my case, colander. Return the drained rice back to the empty pot, cover it once again, and let it sit for about 10 minutes off the heat. The residual heat will continue to cook the rice. Taste the rice again, and once it is perfectly cooked, spread it out onto a sheet tray or that large plate, and let it come to room temperature, stirring occasionally to release as much steam as possible. If you have time, put the rice in the fridge to cool completely, but it will work as soon as it is room temp. While the rice is cooking and cooling, I like to chop the veggies. I like to cut things super small and uniform for fried rice so that everything is close to rice sized. I am no knife skills expert here, but I want to show you how I do it anyway. A sharp knife makes all the difference here, so I recommend starting with that. From there, I like to do the bigger cuts with my non-dominant hand, making a bridge shape to hold the vegetable steady and keep my fingers out of the way. Slicing into planks, then logs, and then tiny cubes. Toss the chopped onion into a bowl and then do the carrots the same way. Peel, slice into half or thirds to make it easier to work with. Then planks, logs, and cubes. Carrots go in with the onions and that bowl goes to the side. For the pepper, I hold it from the stem end and go around the core with my knife, which leaves me with 4 big planks and the center, which goes into the trash bowl. This pepper was huge, so I saved some to put in a salad later this week. Then into strips, and you get the idea. Then the pepper goes into a separate bowl. Cooking the veggies in batches promotes browning without the veggies steaming, so I like to separate them as I chop them. The green beans are even simpler because they're basically already logs, so I slice those into tiny coins and they join the red pepper. For the cabbage, I remove the core, slice in half long ways, and then slice thinly across. The cabbage goes into its own bowl, and it's time to make the sauce. The sauce is very straightforward. This garlic practically peeled itself, but I usually twist garlic cloves to get the papery skins off. It's a way to do it without smashing the clove, which makes it easier to grate on a microplane rasp grater. You can also finely mince with a knife or use a garlic press. That will work just fine. Then I add in the Shaoxing wine, soy sauce, oyster sauce, and brown sugar, and give it a good mix. I like to scramble the eggs for this really, really well. I usually use 2 eggs for this, but honestly, you can use more if you want more. Crack the eggs into a bowl and scramble with a fork or whisk all the way until some big bubbles start to form on the surface. And those are done. The last bit of prep is to take your herbs and give them a rough chop. Okay, I know that was a lot, but now the prep is done and it's finally time to bring it all together. Using clean kitchen scissors, I cut the bacon into 1/2-inch strips directly into the wok. I usually can do 2 or 3 strips of bacon at a time. Bring your stove to medium heat. I add a splash of water, about 2 tablespoons, and cook, stirring frequently until the water is cooked off and the bacon is evenly golden brown and perfectly crisp. This should take about 12 to 15 minutes. I turned off the heat, transferred all of the cooked bacon to the large bowl, and then very carefully poured the bacon fat into the small bowl. I turn the heat back on all the way high and swirl in about a tablespoon-sized glug of neutral oil. Once the pan and the oil are very hot, I add the bowl with the carrots and the onion and toss well. I let the veggies fry until they're lightly charred and just barely cooked through, about 2 or 3 minutes. Off goes the heat, and I put the carrots and onions into the bowl with the bacon, before repeating the same process with the pepper and green beans together, and then the cabbage alone, which takes a little less time, about 1 to 2 minutes. For the eggs, I heat the wok over medium-high and add the reserved bacon fat. I gently pour in the eggs and let them cook, spreading them into a thin layer using a spatula to pull raw egg from the center out to the edges. After about 2 minutes, the eggs are just barely set on top, so I turn off the heat and roll it into a log with the spatula. A bit of the egg got stuck here, which is no big deal. I transfer the omelet to a cutting board and cut into 1/2-inch strips, and then they join the bacon and veggies in the big bowl. Before adding everything in, I scraped off the bit of egg that stuck and then brought the wok back to medium heat. I find that this doesn't need any extra oil, but you may decide to add just a little drizzle before you put everything in. And I mean everything. The contents of the bowl, the rice, and the sauce. Stir it all together, and after about 3 or 4 minutes, everything is hot and sizzling, and it's time to add most of the cilantro, reserving some for garnish, and the toasted sesame oil. Give it a good mix to combine, turn off the heat, and it is ready to be devoured.
You could put anything on top of this. It would be really good with toasted sesame seeds or some kimchi or pickled ginger, some raw scallions, but I keep it really simple. The herbs that I saved go on top, and then chili oil. I'll just do little dots all around. But this doesn't need chili oil. It's got tons of flavor already. Oh, I made it worse. All right, there it is. Mostly veggies, some bacon and eggs, and perfectly cooked rice. Okay, where to begin? That's good. That works. Not overcooking the rice, not overcooking the vegetables, so cooking them in batches like we did, and then just making sure there's enough sauce, but not overdoing it, because if you put too much sauce on, then you're again left with like a gloopy mess. Another thing I love about this is it is truly versatile. You do not need to use the vegetables that I used. And if you are curious about what vegetables I would suggest for substitutes, all of that is listed on the blog post. This is also really good cold the next day if you like leftovers like I do. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this inspires you to make this or something like it. And if you have a way that you enjoy your fried rice, I'd love to hear about it. Let me know in the comments your favorite, your ideal fried rice. For the written recipe with all the detailed instructions and those ingredient substitutes that I talked about, you can find everything on my blog. That is linked below. Here on YouTube and also on my blog, I have more recipes similar to this. I also have my Great British Baking Project where I'm baking along with Great British Bake Off. And then out of the kitchen and into the craft studio, I also have a bunch of DIY and crafting stuff. So please check that out if it speaks to you. You can also join my newsletter or find me on Instagram and we can stay connected that way. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day and I'll see you next time. Thanks for being here. Bye.